Hey folks, Mr. Carter here, ready again to do Fluency and Skills Practice, lesson 12.1. And this one is multiplying by two-digit numbers. So go ahead and put your name on this if you haven't yet, and let's begin. Okay, so the directions say, estimate first each multiplication problem to check if the student's answer is correct. Or is reasonable. And if it's not reasonable, then cross out the answer and write the correct answer. So they did this one as a sample here. So the problem was 14 times 17. And the student had answered 2,380. Well, when you did an estimate, what they did here was they left 14 the same, and then they rounded 17 to 20. So 14 times 20 is 280. Okay, now 280 is not close to what the student answered of 2,380. So you have to go ahead and solve that and get the actual answer. So what they did do that, they found that the actual answer was 238, which is more reasonable, more close to the estimate. So that one is a more reasonable answer. Okay, so let's go through and do the next one. So for this one, the problem was 15 times 19. So the student answered 285. So I'm going to put here an estimate. And I'm going to keep 15 the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 19 20. So that's a friendlier number to work with. And I know that 15 times 2, so if I double 15, I get 30. But then when I attach the 0 from the 20, I get 300. And that 300 is close to what the student actually answered. So we don't need to do the actual answer here because the estimate is reasonable because it's close to what the student answered. So we don't need to double check that kid's work. Okay, so let's look at the next one. 21 times 18. So again, my estimate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 21 and I'm going to make it friendlier and I'm going to make it 20. And I'm going to keep 18 the same. Okay, so now 20 times 18. I know that if I take 18 and I double it, 18 times 2, I get 36. But then we can't forget to add the 0 because it's 20, it's not 2. So it's 360 is our estimate. Now, that is our answer here. The student's answer is not reasonable because they got 3,078. Not anywhere close to our estimate. So now we got it, since it's not anywhere close, we got to go and actually find the exact answer to this. So for 21 times 18, I'm going to use another area model. So I got it set up here. So I'm going to go 21 times 18. And for this, since it's a two-digit times two-digit problem, we got to do like a 2x2 array. So we got to break this apart. We got to break the 21 apart into 20 plus 1. And we got to take the 18 and we got to split it into 10 and 8 because 10 plus 8 is 18. So that's where I'm getting these numbers. Again, so 20 plus 1 is 21. 10 plus 8 is 18. And then what you got to do is you got to just solve each of these squares here. So I'm going to start with my top left. 20 times 10. Well, 2 times 1 is 2. Then I got two zeros here. I got a 0 here and a 0 here. So that is 200. Now I'm going to do this square. So 10 times 1. Well, that's an easy one. That's 10. Now I'm going to do this square. Excuse me. I'm going to go 20 times 8. Well, 2 times 8, we know, is 16. We can't forget the 0 here in the 20, so it's going to be 160. And then 1 times 8 is 8. Then, once we have all our squares filled out, then we got to take our squares and we got to add them. We've got to add, these are called like the partial products. So I'm going to take my 200, and I'm just going to go here, put it here. Take my 10, and it doesn't really matter what order you do these in. Again, I'm making sure that I line up my 1s and my 10s. 160, Again, I'm making sure that my hundreds go in the hundreds. 160. And then last is 8. 8 goes in the ones place. And once we have all our partial products here, then we can add them up. 0, 0, 0, and 8 is 8. 0, 1, plus 6 is 7. 200 plus 100 is 300. So our actual answer, boys and girls, is 378. So what it was asking you to do here is to go back, cross out the student answer, which was 3,078, and put in the actual answer, which was 378. And it looks like they added just a 0 here in the hundreds place. Maybe that's where their mistake was. Okay. Let's look at the next one. So here they were doing 16 times 3. So I'm going to do my estimate, and they came up with an answer of 28. Well, I could already tell by looking at my answer, 28 is probably not going to be a reasonable answer because, you know, we're doing 16 times 3 and they came up with 28. But let's go through with the estimate anyway. So if I take 16, leave it alone, and I'm just going to make 13 a little friendlier, and I'm going to go 10. So 16 times 10, well, again, 16 times 1 is 16, and attached to 0, we got 160. So again, our estimate is 160, not anywhere close to 28. So we can cross that out. So now, since it's not reasonable, we got to figure that out. So again, I'm going to do the area model. All right, 16 times 13. Breaking apart the 16 into 10 and 6. Breaking apart our 13 into 10 and 3. So let's start up here. 10 times 10. Well, 1 times 1 is 1. And then we got a 0 here and a 0 here. So that's 100. 6 times 10. Well, that's 60. 10 times 3. That's 30. 6 times 3 is 18. So now what we've got to do is we take our partial products and we line them up here on the side and add them up. So I'm going to start with my 100 plus 60 plus 30 plus 18. Again, making sure that your digits are lined up. I can't stress that enough, okay? Because that's where a lot of fourth graders make mistakes, is when they don't line up their digits. So 0, 0, 0, and 8 is 8. 6 plus 3 is 9, plus another 1 is 10. Carry the 1. So we have 208 is our actual answer. And again, looks like they added an extra 0. Or sorry, they didn't have the 0 here. So because the actual answer is 208. Okay, so this is a double-sided sheet. So go ahead and I want you to get started on the next side. So it's 13 times 31. Again, start with an estimate and see if that estimate is reasonable to the answer. And if it isn't reasonable, then you need to solve it. Okay, so go ahead and see how you do on the back side. All right, folks, welcome back. So for the next one, the problem was 13 times 31, and the student had an answer of 403. So what I did was I estimated. I took 13 and I made it 15, and I took 31 and I made it 30. And I did that because I know 15s are easier for me to count by anyway. You know that 15 times 3, well, that's 45, and then you attach the 0 and the 30 to make it 450. Well, 450 is pretty close to the actual answer. So I would say that this is a reasonable answer. So that means we don't have to do it. We don't have to work it out. So let's go to the next one. So for this one, it was 18 times 17. Well, they got an answer in the thousands. They got 3,056. So what I did for my estimate, I took 18, I made it 20. And I also did 17, and I also made that 20. Well, 20 times 20 is 400s. So our answer is in the hundreds. And our estimate, I should say, is in the 400s. But their actual answer was in the thousands. So that's not reasonable. That's way off. So we need to do it out. So that's what I did over here. So let me zoom in to show you the area model. So again, for 18 times 17, I took my 18 and I broke it apart into 10 and 8. So 10 plus 8 is 18. Then over here on this side, I did my 17. I took 17 and I made it 10 and 7. Then you got to do each square. So 10 times 10 is 100. 8 times 10 is 80. 10 times 7 is 70. And then 8 times 7 is 56. Now, you don't have to do these squares in the order that I did them. You may have went to this square, to that square. It doesn't matter. And you can switch them up if you want. Then when I added them on the side, so I took 100 plus 80 plus 70 plus 56. I took all the numbers in the boxes and I added them up together. I got 306. Which is a much reasonable answer because, again, our estimate over here was 400. So 306, we're going to cross out that and put 306 because that is our actual answer. All right. For here, the next one was 21 times 15. So let me go back out. So again, I took my 21 and I rounded it to 20. And 15, I kind of like counting by 15. So again, I left it 15. So I know that 2 times 15 is 30. And then again, you got to attach that 0 to make it 300. Well, again, our estimate is 300. Their answer was in the thousands. It was 3,015. So again, not anywhere close to our estimate. So let's do it out. So zooming in again. Oopsie. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. So again, I took my 21 and I broke it apart into 20 and 1. And I took my 15 and I did it 10 and 5. So again, 20 times 10, 200. 1 times 10 is 10. 20 times 5 is 100. 1 times 5 is 5. And then you add all your squares up. 200, 100, 10, and 5. When you add that all up, you get 315, which again is much closer to our estimate. So again, it's not 3,015, but rather 315. All right. Last one here. So again, the problem was 12 times 22. So what I did is I did an estimate of, I took 12 and I made it 10. And I took 22 and I made it 20. So 10 times 20 is 200. And again, 10 times 20 is 200. Not anywhere close to what they got. So we got to do that out. All right. So again, I took my 12. Let's zoom in again. I took my 12 and I broke it apart into 10 and 2. Took my 22 and I made it 20 and 2. 10 times 20 is 200. 2 times 20 is 40. 10 times 2 is 20. 2 times 2 is 4. Then you add all your partial products, so 200, 40, 20, 4. When you add that all together, you get 264, which again is much closer to the estimate of 200 rather than 2,000. So the actual answer here is 264. Now, okay, so the one down here, let me zoom out, zoom in, I should say focus, there we go. How does estimating a multiplication problem help you to know if the answer is reasonable? Well, you can check to see if your answer is much larger or smaller than the estimate. Like let's look at the last one. So again, our estimate was in the 200s, and then they had an answer in the 2000s. So that again is way off. So it kind of helps you figure out, okay, I'm in the ballpark, or I'm not in the ballpark. So it helps you kind of figure out if your answer is reasonable. Okay. All right, friends. Well, hope this was helpful. And again, if you have questions, reach out to your teacher. Take care.